It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. And if you read that title, you know today I am going to be talking about the literary classic by Charles Dickens, A Tale of Two Cities. Now, this book has been viewed as a masterpiece through the generations by literary scholars alike. And I've read some books by Charles Dickens in my past that I truly, truly enjoyed, like Great Expectations and David Copperfield. I picked up A Tale of Two Cities back in 2014, and yes, it took me 7 years to finish this book, and we're going to go into some reasons why, because this book, by today's standards, is a very difficult read. And I'm not going to say it's a difficult read in terms of the book per se, but more or less per se how books are written now and how humans are now. Because A Tale of Two Cities tells a story that happens around the time of the French Revolution between France and England, and there's a lot going on in this book, and it is divided into 3 different subsections that happen at 3 different points in time. Now, with me starting this book all the way back in 2014, I wanted to pick up a version of it that felt definitive. This version of it, made by the Easton Press of Norwalk, Connecticut, back in the late 80s, kind of looks like a Bible in a way. And with this being considered a literary masterpiece, why not get the Bible version of a book? It has like gold, like page endings to it, and it also has one of those fancy bookmarks to it. But so let's go into this. The reason it took me 7 years to read this book is because at so many points, based on the way the book is written in very old English, a lot of metaphors, it is very, very confusing, or at least it was for me, to follow along with what was going on. Now, when I first started this book, I got really into it. I was able to follow it, and picking it back up over time, I remembered what I read in the beginning, and it would start to kind of make sense as to where I was picking off more recently. But then, towards the latter half of the book, I want to say the last subsection, I completely have no idea what was going on, and I'm going to be honest, it's definitely me. It's definitely from the books I read now, how they're written. This is written in, I want to say, very old English. And the story, from what I was able to pick up, was not apparently anything in the later half that I thought was going on. I had to actually go read some, like, synopsises. And I would look and be like, wait, no, that's... Oh, okay, that's what they meant. I completely understood this wrong. Now, maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just how my brain was interpreting the story. Because through so many people throughout the centuries, or 2 centuries, 3 centuries almost now, have touted this book as a literary masterpiece, like I mentioned. And I'm not going to say it's not. Because the book is very well written, I think, if you sat and could understand the way it was written. I was reading online that they say you have to kind of understand how Charles Dickens writes to understand a lot of the way the literary art here is prescribed, if you want to say that, how it's laid out, how he tells his story. Because there's a lot of, as I mentioned, metaphors. There's a lot of double meanings to things, or there's, I don't want to say double meanings, actually. There's just a lot of expression going on here that sometimes he gives too much detail for parts of the story that don't really need it, and I think that makes you think things are more epic or more important in terms of the plot line than they actually are. Now, as it pertains to me personally, I will definitely say this book was a very, very hard read because of the time period in which it came out, and trying to throw that together with how things are now, how we're used to books, and just they're not the same anymore, naturally, because the times have changed. I do think, from what I was able to pick up of this book, about a man who I think gets out of jail and he's trying to chase after a woman he loves, and there is a lot of things going on between this tale of two cities that, to me, for some reason, I just kept thinking of it as like a Romeo and Juliet story in a way, even though there's so much more going on, and I know I'm very, very wrong in interpreting it that way based on the cliff notes I read afterwards, because I just got really, really confused at multiple points of this book as to what was going on. I was having those moments where I was reading it, but nothing was really comprehending. And maybe it's because I felt like I wasn't so into the book in terms of maybe just being lost in general at that point, that I was reading, trying to hope I would pick back up and understand what was happening, and I just couldn't. And that's probably more of a me issue because I took 7 years to read this book. I think if I would have sat back in 2014 and read this fully, I might have a whole different opinion on it. So, from what I do comprehend of this book and reading over these synopsises, I want to say the story is fantastic because reading over like the chapter synopsises makes it sound a lot better than what I felt like I read, because of, I guess, all the information that's there, and it wasn't straight to the point. There was a lot going on, as I mentioned, and I don't think I could do it. Maybe it's my like short attention span sometimes, but the later half of this book, I just really personally couldn't pick up what was going on. Now, for someone who understands Old English, old writing, and like that Charles Dickens style of writing, this probably is a masterpiece. For me, the average reader that read this expecting something great, I guess if we're doing a pun, we can do a great expectations puns because it's Charles Dickens. I don't think it was for me. Maybe I'll pick this up in the future again, try to reread it, and have a better opinion on it. But as for right now, if you guys were thinking of reading A Tale of the Two Cities, I want to say you might have the same letdowns that I did, only based on the knowledge and the current style of literary writing versus, what was popular back then. This is a difficult read, at least I feel like it was. For other people, it might not be. It might not be, depending on their skill level of reading and understanding. If I were to rate like this book, right, in terms of 1 for not difficult, 2 for the most difficult, I would give this a 9 by today's standards. The story, from what I read, was fantastic, but there's a lot going on, as I've said so many times at this. And I don't think for the average reader I could recommend it. And by average, I mean someone who reads books not for fun, not for pleasure, but just in their free time. They, like I do for video games, like they don't... For someone who's just like willing to hope they find a good story and get hooked to it, this might not be for you. But if you're an avid reader who just reads books all the time, you probably could figure this one out. That's my little quick review on this. I don't want to knock the book at all because I know the understanding part of it was all on me. In terms of the masterpiece that it is, I believe the story is a masterpiece. When actually reading up and reading modern translations of what's going on, it's beautiful. It is definitely a beautiful story, but it's a difficult read. That's my little quick review on this. Guys, if you've read A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, maybe you can help me understand it more. Leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. As always, thank you for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, keep reading. Knowledge is power. I'll catch you later. See you, bye.